Welcome. We are doing Tech Talk, and we've got hashtag EDI2. Make sure you check that out. But we're at the world famous Cigar City Brewery with one of the best brewers in the, well, he's got one of the best brewers working for him. one of the most innovative, creative beer guys in the entire world, sitting right to my left. And I'm really excited to have Joey Redner here. And Joey, I'm honored to get the chance to talk with you. And just, I want to thank you for letting us use some valuable space in your tasting room. It's a Friday, and this place is always packed. Got my growler here. Usually it's a bag of coffee, but today it's going to be a growler of beer. And the round table, and we're going to be talking with Joey about beer, about craft beer, and what it really does to help grow a community and help with innovations and startups. We've got the usual round table with us, but Joey, tell us a little bit about how you got started in the brew industry and why Tampa.
Well, thanks for having me and inviting me to do it. First of all, I really got started mostly out of traveling around and sort of seeing craft beer scenes in other cities. You travel around the country. You go to places like Denver, Portland, San Francisco, San Diego, and you see they don't have one or two breweries. They'll have 3, 4, 5 packaging, and it sort of helps create sort of the beers start to define the city. I mean, you can't think of, for me anyway, you can't think of San Francisco without thinking of Anchor.
Exactly.
It starts to become part of the fabric of what that area is. And I've always, I'm a native kid. I'm a 5th generation Floridian, born and raised in Tampa. I always loved my city, but I just wish I could get some better beer. So in my travels, I always was kind of expecting someone to do it. When you saw the way it was growing there, it was like I knew it's got to happen eventually, and I was going to go work for that guy because I knew a lot about beer. I was going to go work for that guy or girl or whoever. And just slowly over the years, it just never happened. And honestly, a lot of it was me sort of investigating why it wasn't happening. Well, is the startup too expensive? Is the equipment, is the water not right for brewing? I started asking the questions and then answering them, and over the course of about 4 years, I basically built a business plan by accident by asking the questions and answering them. And I took a lot of that information that I had gathered over the time, and I said, I can do this. I don't know why anyone else has it, but I can do this.
Well, I'm curious about that because, one of the things that I'm always fascinated with are really interesting places to live. Lived in Denver, lived in D.C. I had the opportunity to travel around the country a lot, and I'm the same way. When I go to a city, I learn about that city by their beer.
Yeah,
I'm always
food.
Exactly, and I want to know. And Tampa was always kind of like, I felt boring. Like we just didn't have craft beer, and I would hear, well, you can't do it, and I never understood, well, why can't Tampa? Because here you come. How long has Cigar City been in existence?
Let's see. We're in our 4th year, so we'll be going into our 5th year. I think there was definitely good beer to be had in Florida. Right. I think laws are probably part of it too. It's a lot easier to run a brew pub than a manufacturing brewery. We have Tampa Bay Brewing Company in Dunedin. We had breweries here that were doing interesting things, but the laws made it harder for them to really operate. The way that would be the most profitable.
Well, let's mention Dunedin, and I don't want to put any. One thing I think is so cool about you is you actually are helping your brother brewers. I mean, you're out there, not just you're competing with them, but you're also giving them opportunities. I noticed you got beer taps where you've got some of your, competitors. You're brewing, you're selling some of their beer.
We're in it. We're a small percentage of the overall beer market, but growing quickly.
Yeah.
And we always, there's a term or a phrase in craft beer that they're not competitors, they're cohorts. They're fighting that same battle. They're trying to grow the brand of craft and of well-made and of local, and they're doing it with you. And there's two folds to that. That's true. It's more ripples in the pond, creating awareness. But it's also, if you can help each other be good operators in your segment, it raises everybody's game, and it makes it harder for someone to sort of come in and not perform well and drag everyone else down.
Well, now your equipment that you purchased, where did you get I'm just kind of curious. You said, okay, I'm going to brew beer, and I'm going to do it right here. Obviously you weren't getting small kettles. You're getting, big pieces of equipment. Where did you get your equipment from?
Well, we started fairly small, bigger than the average.
And what was your first beer?
Our first beer was the first beer we actually brewed was the Maduro Brown Ale.
Oh, okay.
That was the first beer we brewed, and then High Life followed. The equipment originally came from a company based out of San Diego, where there's a lot of breweries. And so they'll get some things made in China, then shipped to them for retrofitting. And then as we grew, we continued to buy equipment from them. And then we made a very conscious decision once we went into the production facility after we got that going that, hey, we're telling people buy local beer, buy American beer. So we decided we're only going to buy American fermenters from now on. So,
wow.
So all of our larger fermenters are 120 barrel fermenters, which is the biggest fermenters that we use. So a barrel is 31 gallons. And it's the large kegs that you see, in the back of a bar, those are called half barrels because they're 15.5 gallons. They're half of a barrel. So these will brew 200. You can put 240 kegs worth of beer into these tanks at a time. And we'll have when it's all done and the last of the expansion is done, we'll have 14 of those tanks. They're all American made.
Wow, 14 tanks.
1,420 barrel tanks, and they were all made in America.
Where are they being made? Who's the big
2 of them were made in Nevada, and 12 of them were made in Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we've even looked at doing some small scale manufacturing of fermentation tanks based on the knowledge that we've sort of gleaned in operating here of things that we think brewers would appreciate it. So we even kind of on the side have considered doing some actual manufacturing.
Now, did you go and do research? Did you go to Asheville and some other places and look at what they're doing?
I definitely did a lot of it's Ezra Pound has the great quote, good poets borrow, great poets steal. So you go and you see what works and what's good and what people are responding to, and you take it back and you make it for your area. So we definitely wanted to make it very Tampa-centric. And drawing from things that were, part of Tampa's culture. I feel like we have a very unique and interesting culture here. I just don't think we've always done a good job of exporting it, even just educating people that live here. I mean, it blows my mind sometimes. So you'll say something like, a Milanese or a Pane Mio steak to someone, and they've been here for 20 years. And they don't know what you're talking about. They're like, what is that? I've never heard of that. I'm like, how is that possible?
Well, one of the things I think is so cool, when I came here for your Hanapu Day, this is when I realized we were finally on to something big as a community, because I came and it was packed out. I mean, you come here and there's so many, and lots of young people who know their beer. And what I noticed was, as I'm walking around, I don't know any of these people. I don't know these faces. And I'm asking them, where are you from? And I'm finding out, my gosh, they're from all over the country, and they're here because of Hanapu, and they're hearing about Tampa Bay, and they know about Cigar City. And I think that is incredibly cool that you've attracted so many people, and now you've got beer connoisseurs from all over the world coming, as well as a local population, which is really, I think, their taste for craft beer is growing.
Oh yeah.
Is that what you're finding?
Yeah, beer travel has really become a big thing, and if you think about, Florida being a unique state, it's that state where everyone kind of goes at some point, whether I'm going to see a relative or I'm going to a theme park. So if you're looking at vacation options and maybe you're kind of into beer and you're like, oh wow, they've got this really unique beer scene going on in Tampa, I can head down to Orlando where I might have just stayed in Orlando, and I'm going to take a day trip over. And what we've really seen is, as more breweries have come into the city, it's only increased our business, because now it's a destination. Now not only can I go to Cigar City, but I can drive over the bridge, spend the day at the beach. I can go to Seventh Sun in Dunedin. I can go to Dunedin Brewery. I can go to Cycle Brewing in Gulfport. So now it's even more so, because it's not the fashion district because there's one house there. It's not the diamond district because there's one. It starts to become a destination. I can see several breweries and do tours, and it grows based on that momentum, because
that is really cool. Well, I wanted to give you an opportunity, if you want, to ask some questions of Joey, and then we're going to talk about, I've got Stephanie Savetovic. Did I pronounce it correctly?
I'm impressed.
Stephanie Savetovic is with the government. She's here to help you.
Ronald Reagan's famous word.
Yeah,
She's going to buy some beer to take home.
Yeah, we're all buying beer to take home. But what's so cool about when I talked to Stephanie about the what's happening in economic development around the country and how, it's becoming a kind of a cool thing. People, startups, the tech community, and we do a lot of our talks around coffee, but we're also finding that there's a lot of excitement in the beer community. I mean, Stephanie, can you kind of talk a little bit about beer and startups and the community and how it's all tied together?
Well, that's an interesting prompt, but thank you. No, I just think it's really exciting to have a resource like this here, especially when we're talking about the entrepreneur community. It isn't all young people, but it is people who are looking at cutting edge things, and I think kind of looking at cutting edge things when it comes to the business sense kind of is what looking at cutting edge things is craft beer. I mean, I think it's a kind of a little bit of a parallel, if you will. So I think that this would be actually a really cool place for young people to come to spitball ideas, to brainstorm. I mean, it's great to get coffee. It's great to go to an empty warehouse, but it's also really cool to come to such a great location like you have here. So we're excited that you're here as just, I think, not only as a great contributor to our economy, but as somebody who can, I think, provide a resource to our growing community.
I mean, our biggest tech membership group is actually called Bar Camp, so it would make sense that they would drink beer.
Well, I went to Bar Camp with my Cigar City shirt thinking, where's the beer?
Right.
And now they know they don't have these meetings without bringing Cigar City beer. We, Ignite, you had beer.
I did. We had Cigar City beer.
It's Cigar City beer.
We made an
Sprout
arrangement with
Camp,
Joey.
they had some Cigar City beer.
I bought that right here.
Okay, so let me tell you though. Okay, but you're scaling it. I mean, we talk about techs and startups and the ability to scale. How is Cigar City scaling? It seems like you're growing fast.
Yeah, so let's see. We're last year we brewed 17 times what we did in the first year.
Wow.
This year we're going to brew more than probably 25 times what we did in the first year.
That's awesome.
And how was it when all that extra beer? I mean, where's the volume? Is the volume going out just in cans and bottles, or what is?
Yeah, we're about 50-50 draft to package. Package being cans or bottles. So about half of it goes to the draft, and about half of it goes into a can or a bottle.
First, Mark, there is no such thing as extra beer.
Right. Extra beer.
That's not true.
I'd been here when I was in line, right, coming in, and there was this guy. It was so funny because everybody's in line to get their growlers filled, right? And there's a guy about 10 people behind me, and you guys ran out right in front of me, right? And I was buying bottles, so I was cool with that. It was okay for me, right? Because I was buying stuff to take to an event, so I was buying a bunch of varieties. The poor guy had been on his motorcycle, had come all the way from Venice, Florida, here, with his growlers to get filled up. He's like, oh my God. And I'm like, wow, dude, I wish I had the spot in line because I would give it to you just because of that, And I mean, but it's
I don't
amazing.
like when that happens, but it does sometimes.
But he found something else. Yeah. It was okay, right, in the end. But I mean, you do have a loyal following. I mean, I think we have people in our community who it's got to be Cigar City beer, which is why we work so hard to have it at Ignite. Because I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm like, we have to make this actually happen. It's important.
I was so excited to come here because I'm fairly new back to Florida resident, first time Tampa Bay resident, and when we came here, friends from college who have been here for 12 years said, have you been? Of the places, all right, we're new to the area, where are you going? Where do you need to go? And this was about this was in everybody's top three. So being a young professional and loving and thriving in this community, it is a really exciting thing to see that every one of our contacts said,
go there.
Why haven't you been there? Right. I mean, so that was really...
It's cool. I mean, I was at a restaurant the other night in Bradenton, right? A new place that opened called Owen's Fish Camp, and they have 4 Cigar City beers on the thing. I was like, awesome.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Are you finding it's difficult to get your beer in the restaurant? Is it a challenge to get it into the restaurants, or now is it a challenge for you to keep up with the demand?
Right now, our biggest challenge is keeping up with demand.
Wow, that's awesome.
I think you sort of hit that point. And just speaking something that you said about focusing on an area and there maybe being more than you might suspect. we've been able to grow because we've been very fortunate in our staffing. So I started with 2 employees, and now we have 52 here at the production brewery.
Wow.
But we've been very fortunate in our staffing, and I think what happened was it wasn't just an underserved craft beer market, it was an underserved labor market of people that were very passionate about beer that would love to work in the industry and had nowhere to go, or if they just really wanted it, they left. And they would go to a state where they did have it. So I think when you can take that and extrapolate it to other industries, I have such fierce loyalty from my employees because they can work in a field that they're passionate about, and they work that much harder with that much more enthusiasm because now they have a place where they can go. We have a lot of homebrewers who've been doing it as amateurs who now have a chance to come work in a brewery and make a living doing what they love. And I think you can see that spill over into tech, into other types of manufacturing where people...
Okay, Joe, where do your people come from? How many of these people are local versus imports?
I think 2 of our employees have recently come from other breweries out of state, and Wayne, our original one, came from North Carolina. Our new one just came from North Carolina, the other one from the D.C. area. But everyone else is pretty much homegrown and home trained.
A hidden talent right here in the market that just needed the spark.
We had 2 guys come over from Orlando that were just amazing. They each, first the one guy, then the next guy won Homebrewer of the Year in the state.
Oh, really?
Yep. And then one guy was working at an engineering firm that NASA was their biggest customer, and they pretty much got shut down. So he left engineering. He went to Georgia Tech for engineering. He left engineering to become a brewer.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
There's a very close tie between tech and beer. So.
Yeah, there are so many
We buy lots of
engineers
beer.
in brewing. It blows my mind.
Oh, absolutely.
Those are the people that are going to geek out over process and try to improve it, and get that extra half a degree of fermentation efficiency, and
The gal who ran our Ignite last year, she and her husband used to both work at Honeywell, and they moved up to Philadelphia, and they started their own brewery. Again,
yeah, there's a lot of technology that goes into brewing, especially in Florida. Chilling and cooling capacity is different here than it's going to be, in the Northeast or in the Northwest. You're going to have different demands. And there's, we have large packaging equipment, which takes mechanical skill and knowledge of Alan Bradley type programming stuff. There's a lot of skill set that goes into making beer.
Well, what's so cool, you can tell because what you produce is fantastic. And when you produce something fantastic, the market's going to respond. What I think is, my wife and I were talking about this, what makes Cigar City so special? You know what? First off, if you read anything about, Joey Redner, what you know is you love it. You love the industry. You love what you're producing. And when, whether it's, Buddy Brew with coffee, and they love their coffee, and as a result, I tell you, you're going to pay a little bit extra because you want their coffee. When you drink this beer, it's like you take one sip, it's like, okay, this is good beer. There's a lot of guys that have been out there for a long time, and they're producing okay beer. And I guess they're doing okay. I guess that's, one of the things about your company is that it's a fabulous product because you guys care about it.
We brew the beer we want to drink. That we don't have a motto, but that's what we use internally. Is brew the beer you want to drink.
I love that.
Now, okay, so now Wayne,
Wayne Wombles.
Is he your head?
He is our brewmaster,
And you say he came from North Carolina?
Yeah, he actually,
Was he at Highlands or?
he was actually at Foothills.
Oh, okay.
They do it. One of their famous beers is called Sexual Chocolate, which that name always makes me laugh. But he actually got his first commercial brewing job in Tallahassee, Florida. He's from Enterprise, Alabama, just over the border from Florida, and he got his first commercial job at a place called Buckhead Brewing that was in Tallahassee. Yeah. And then brewed in Atlanta for a while, brewed at Poplarhead Mule Company in Alabama for a while, and went on to North Carolina, and from there to here.
Okay, so now I was asking you, because one of my favorites is the Tocobaga beer. So what's the thinking behind Tocobaga? What's going on with this beer? It seems like there's a high demand for it. You're selling it locally. What if someone wants to get it in another city? What do they do?
Right now, it's pretty much just in the Tampa Bay area. So the Tocobaga Indians were the pre-Columbian natives of the Tampa Bay area, mostly centered around Safety Harbor and up into Old Tampa Bay. And then you had the Calusa Indians or the Calusa Native Americans to the south. I think the Pohoy over towards Gibsonton. But they were basically the first inhabitants of this area going, back 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 years. So we thought it would be nice to name a beer sort of on their own and just keep it Tampa Bay only, keep it exclusive. It is definitely a beer that would probably explode if we let it. We've purposely had to throttle it back, just because when you're trying to scale things up, you've got to make sure you have the raw ingredients. And you can't just, it's not one of those things you can just say, oh, just send me more.
Right.
These are agricultural products, and you have to sort of contract a year, 2 years, 3 years out ahead of time. So we've got plans to grow it in another year and a half, 2 years, and we're growing it as much as we can for now.
You're already thinking that far ahead.
You in brewing, you have to be thinking 5 years down the road. All the time.
Okay, so what makes
and
the
putting
beer
out
red?
fires every day.
I just have to know this. What makes it red?
So it's a combination of what we call specialty malts. Most beers have what's called a base malt, which is usually a 2-row, and that's what you're getting most of your sugar content that you're then fermenting, with the yeast to make alcohol and CO2. Then you add specialty malts, and they can be kilned to different degrees, which that kilning process will give them color. You start to create Maillard reactions. So you start to get the dark roast, you get the chocolate malts. So this beer has a little bit of chocolate malt and a little bit of darker, a darker malt. So those colors, it's called SRM, Standard Referencing Method. That's where you gauge the color of beer. You start to get those darker colors. But what you basically have with Toca is an IPA similar to Jai Alai. It's got those kind of IBUs, international bittering units, but with a little bit more of a chocolatey, caramelly malt base underneath it. So it's got a really nice balance to it. Not that Jai Alai doesn't. It's also a very balanced beer, but you're balancing it with a little more chocolate hint than with just caramel.
And will you one day? I mean, that's amazing. I would say it's good. He's good.
Marcos, I love it. It's great. It's a great beer.
Now, will you be able to get that in the can? Because I know, what's this can bottle thing going on?
So, cans have always gotten this bad rap as being declassé. It's the lowbrow, but it's really the superior vessel for beer. It takes light out of the equation, and especially when you're doing really hoppy beers like Jai Alai, which is our flagship beer. Jai Alai is 54% of our production.
Wow.
It's 54% of the beer we make is Jai Alai. So it's an extremely hoppy beer. The number one enemy, especially of hoppy beers, is light. Can takes that out of the equation. You also have lower oxygen pickup because it's closed, whereas with the crown on a bottle, oxygen can get in, especially as the pressure normalizes. It cannot get into a can. So it's got those two things going. And then you add to that, they're lighter, they cost less to ship. There's some places you just can't take glass. A lot of times you can't take them camping, you can't take them to concerts, you can't take them to the beach. And boating, it's not so good. Or if you're camping, you can bring in a case of beer. It's this big. You can bring it out, and it's this big. Bottles the same size packing in as packing out. So it's got a lot of advantages. So that's one of the reasons we made the hard switch over to cans and I would have done cans in the very beginning. I just didn't have enough money. You have to order so many cans at once.
Really?
Yeah. I was broke and I couldn't do cans, but I would have done cans right in the beginning.
Well, I mean, I know that some of us have to go. Stephanie, she's heading out, but this has been fantastic. I honestly could talk beer till late. I mean, this has been fascinating, and it's cool to know that Cigar City is right here in Tampa Bay. That we've got a community of beer lovers who also love tech and love startups and entrepreneurial minded. I think that you've ignited an excitement in Tampa Bay that I have not seen, and I'm a resident as well. I was born and raised here in Tampa. I have not seen this.
Well,
I mean, we've gone from this kind of just standard fare to really unique and special, and it's something that you've brought here. And I think that Tampa Bay is better for what you brought to Tampa and what Cigar City is going to do for all of Tampa Bay. But it's something that I think the startup community is really going to kind of glom onto. I mean, we want Tampa Bay to be cool. And
I think it is cool.
Cooler.
We just got to tell the story.
You should be working for the chamber. I know it.
You need to get Michelle Baker from the refinery to work for the chamber. That woman can tell the story.
All right. That's the other thing. You think about refinery and Ella's and all these places that are really taking off. And, they're selling your beer. but they're also telling their story.
Yeah.
And they're making special stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? I mean, I know we got to go, but I mean, there seems to be there's an art to this. There's a science, and you certainly know the science. There's an art. I mean, I'm just trying to understand how you've been so successful.
Again, I think it's that combination of underserved market. You know, they wanted something to call their own, to have their own, you know, brand that they could identify with that's local. I think it's having a lot of beer geeks. It's not just me. I'd love to take all the credit, but it's really not just me. It's having a community of beer geeks that were immediately like, oh, you have a brewery. Can you hire me and I'll, you know, and give me money to do what I love? Yes. And we've always kept an open if you have a good idea, it does have a chance to see the light of day. I mean, you know, the Tokabaga, that wasn't Wayne's recipe, that was Tim Ogden, one of our other brewers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that was him saying, this idea really intrigues me. Can we try this as a commercial product? And it grew from there. Cucumber Saison, which is one of our summer seasonals that a lot of people really enjoy. That was our vice president, who is not a brewer. I mean, he understands the brewing process, but he's not a brewer. That was him, you know, at Ocean Prime drinking a cucumber gimlet and going, man, cucumber I think would work really well in a Saison. And coming back, and I hated the idea. I thought it was a horrible idea.
but you were open to it.
But I was open to it. It was intriguing enough that we said, let's try it. You know, and then when it doesn't work, I'll make fun of him. But people loved it. People loved it, and we have lots of beers that we're not. It's not like it's all coming through me or Wayne. You know, we're letting people say, look, these are. And the treatments that we do, like the habanero IPA. We have two guys that's you know, when they're working on the brew side, that's all they're doing is just coming up with different ideas based on feedback that they've gotten in the past.
But you guys ask questions too, like if you come in here, right? And I think that's maybe people who haven't been here and kind of hung out for a little while. When you come in, the guys ask questions. Do you like that? Do you not like that? What do you think? Is there something you want, right? So they're taking that feedback, my assumption, right, and giving it to you guys, right? And decisions are made based on the feedback of your customers.
Yeah, but honestly, you can just sort of look and see what sells. Yeah. You make something, you might have the idea, and you may love it, but you know, taste is subjective. It's not it's not quantitative. The cash register will tell you what people really do like.
That's right.
This guy's a great
so many parallels here with tech.
We're gonna continue this conversation. We're gonna come back and we're gonna give you an opportunity at some point in the future to do this again, because I tell you what, I think people will just line up to ask you questions. The one thing about Joey is though, you never see Joey sitting around. Honestly, this is the longest I've seen you sit still.
I've been thinking about going to get a beer.
I know, but you work hard, and you're doing great for Tampa Bay, and we're just honored to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
This has been fantastic. I mean, I just think this has been great, and I look forward to having future conversations with you, and seeing Tampa Bay do some great things. Thanks, Joey.
Oh, cheers. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.
Thank you.
I mean, that's good. I mean, so Tokabaga was that?
Tim Ogden, he was our lead brewer. He's now the brewer at the brew pub.